Everybody, Nava Hopkins here with a new Learn with Optmyzr. We are going to do this as a mega one. So no 2 episodes this month, but we're going to be unpacking solutions within Google Ads and acknowledging where there are opportunities within Optmyzr to actually get even more value. This is not putting down the solutions, which is an amazing free resource within Google Ads. Rather, this is an opportunity to identify where there are really big wins that you as an Optmyzr customer or you who are considering Optmyzr can really get in that value. Let's dive into this Learn with Optmyzr. So the solutions option are actually kind of beautified scripts. So you've been able to do all of these things through scripts and rules pretty much since Google Ads started. What you haven't necessarily been able to do is have them be packaged in this really beautiful way. So for the layperson who maybe doesn't feel comfortable with scripts, this is a really powerful option. You'll notice that within Google Ads, and I'll just point out that they are found within your tools, your bulk actions and solutions, and then I clicked that plus option there. You'll notice that all solutions, we have an account summary, which is kind of a nice general report, ad performance, which is going to show all the different assets for you, the account anomaly detector, the link checker, flexible budgets, and common negative list. All of these are really critical functions that you should be doing on a regular basis. You should be checking for anomalies. You should be making sure that your links are working, accommodating for budgets that need to adjust based off of maybe different dates or changes in your business, things like that. So when we are looking at our account anomaly detector, for example, and we create a new one, we are given rules of customization 25%, 120% for cost threshold, impression thresholds, conversion thresholds, weeks to look at data. These are all if this then that statements to tell Google like, hey, this is acting outside the realm of possibility. Now, another thing that's important to note about this, you'll notice could not create a solution at this time. Please try again at a later time. Part of this is tied to the API. So if the API is down, or if you don't have permission to make adjustments, you're not going to be able to use a solution. Now, one of the reasons I like solutions for the average advertiser who just wants to play a little bit, get started, is that these are actually fairly safe guidelines, and the pre-populated defaults within solutions are a really good place to start, especially since most of the adjustments or most of the things that they're going to do are really just reports and alerts. Really great way there. However, if you know in your business that these are incorrect, you definitely want to adjust them. So you'll notice that there are some preset ones. I also think it's worth noting that, say, for example, the clicks threshold within the history average, that it's 25, 50, 70, 80. There is no tiny deviations. So if you care that there are slight deviations, like say you have a really large account and a 10% deviation is going to be a problem for you because that's quite a number of clicks, then you want to be alerted before it's that 25%. So that's just another thing to note. The final thing I will point out here is the weeks to look for historical data. So you have that 13 weeks. Do note that when you are looking at a period of time for any solution within Google, or when we hop to the Optmyzr side, you are going to want to make sure that you're giving yourself enough time for any changes you made previously to take hold. So the 13 weeks is actually not only a really useful amount of time, it aligns interestingly with what Google thinks a time frame for checking for anomalies should be. So if we're looking at 13 weeks, that's essentially 3 months. So that 90-day period, Google is essentially telling you that by default, it wants to go a little over 90 days for an account to clear. So this is a big reason why you might see folks wait 90 days before they really judge an account. It's because you want to make sure that you're actually accommodating for it cleared the learning periods, it did all these things. So this is essentially how all of the solutions work. They will let you have an email output, and then you have your frequency, and you can see it as a preview. I will say that if you decide to use this solution, be prepared for how many emails are going to come to you. You're going to want to make sure that, especially if you do this hourly, that you have them going to a specific folder within your email. Otherwise, you're going to get spammed. So just keep that in mind. So the next thing we're going to do is we're actually going to take a look through all the tools within Optmyzr that handle the things that the solutions do, and in my opinion, do them a little bit nicer. And the reason why I say nicer is that you don't necessarily have to rely on Google's defaults. You can embrace your own path to victory, embrace your own strategies. So our first stop is going to be the URL Health Monitor. This is found on the dashboard. And what's really lovely about this tool is that, yes, you can download the list and get that there, but you also can see, without having to worry about it hitting your email, you can just log into your dashboard and have it right there, a printout of cost, clicks, any issues that there might be. And then you also can use the landing page URL checker. Now, the landing page URL checker, if you want to create some custom rules, is actually very, very powerful, not only for traditional campaigns, but for PMAX asset groups as well. Now, there are two modes. There's the preview mode and the apply mode. So preview mode will behave much like solutions. It'll just alert you that this is a problem. The apply mode will actually take that step to pause the assets that are tied to those broken links or products that are out of stock or whatever things that you've asked for. Now, the re-enabling pause entities is an important step, because if you don't do that and you've made the fix, you're going to have to go back in and re-enable it yourself. Optmyzr has the really useful functionality of it will check back and see like, hey, did it get fixed? If you need to create certain rules, you can say do not apply changes to certain URLs, so that way you don't get hit with that. So once you've made the rules, you would click next. And the campaign name, we do need you to type this in correctly spelled. So we're not able to check for the spelling, but you'll notice that it says a common word found in all the campaigns that you want to exclude in the report. So just make sure that, say for example, branded, you don't want branded, make sure that you include that. For minimum clicks, this is actually very important. I don't think that you should have any traffic going to anything that's broken or bad products. But if you, for example, don't want to be overwhelmed or you don't want to be too risk averse, you can set the number at 10, but I would usually set this at 1 for clicks. And for text, this is where you would put things like out of stock, 404, whatever errors you need to accommodate for. This is going to be where you do that. Next, you would have for check for special response codes. So this is going to be in case there are any errors that you know based off of your website system. And then if you include entities with 0 impressions, it's okay. It's a decent idea, but just bear in mind that you may end up getting kind of overwhelmed with potential pages to review if you don't do this on apply. So just factor that in. And if there are URLs that you know are going to need some very specific attention, you constantly want them checked, this is where you can do that. If you have a mobile specific URL versus a desktop one, this is where you can make sure that you have that. And if there are any kind of special custom URL slugs that you have, you can make sure that you strip that as well. Now, for our running of the link checker, you're going to want to make sure that you do that based off of a certain time and how often you want it to run. And the spreadsheet access of what gets put out, you need to make sure that it's applied to any and all resources that you want. Otherwise, you're going to have to go in and share that access. And you can toggle whether there's email notification. So I personally like email notifications for this if there's an error. However, I don't necessarily want a notification every time the report runs. So I tend to leave this off, but if you want it every time it runs, absolutely that's there for you. So this is the landing page checker and kind of that URL checker piece of solutions. The next piece that I wanted to bring up is the anomaly piece. So PPC Investigator within Optmyzr is probably one of our most popular tools, but one of the reasons that I think it does as well as it does and is as useful as it is that we're able to essentially ask questions rather than blanket statements of if this, then that. But part of the value of PPC Investigator is that we're actually able to look at our clicks versus other metrics within our campaigns. Now, say for example, I wanted to understand what was causing the issue. This is where we can take a look at, did our budget go up for a certain amount? So these are all some very powerful opportunities there. And then finally, when we're taking a look at clicks, clicks can be useful, but I want to take a look at conversions, for example. So I would ask, and we can see that for the most part, it's net positive. So PPC Investigator is a very powerful tool to check for those anomalies, and it does it without forcing any particular metric or deviation. Rule Engine, as we're going to get to, allows you to set very specific percentages, but this is just a very powerful way to work through that. Now, I did want to make sure that we also touched base on negatives because that is part of the solution toolkit. So we have two essential ways that we can look at negatives. One is just finding the negative finder. What are some ideas that might be worth getting rid of? Now you'll notice that the match type that they're being suggested to add as a negative is phrase. Phrase match negative is the default for most folks that run Google and Microsoft side by side because Microsoft doesn't have a broad match negative. So we do encourage you to consider single word terms as phrase match negative. However, if you have a string of words and you don't want that string of words to be in that order for a negative, then you might want to do a broad match negative. It behaves like, this might be dating us a little bit, but modified broad, where the words could be in any order, but they all had to be there. Now, of course, all match types essentially do this, but this went from way back when. The other opportunity with negatives is our negative keyword finder with the traffic sculptor. And what's really powerful about this is that we're actually able to see, okay, PPC management for small business, is the idea of PPC management actually good traffic for us? Now, one thing that I personally really enjoy about this versus the solutions option is that the Optmyzr traffic sculptor really groups those ideas so that you can see what is that through point that came through off of your search terms. So in our case, with this very particular example, Optmyzr is a software. We don't actually provide management. And many folks for small business accounts are actually looking for someone to hold their hand and helpfully manage their account. So even though price point wise, we are definitely a good fit for someone in the SMB space all the way to enterprise, the management piece is not actually going to be met. So even though they could be a good fit, if we could convince them to do it themselves, we're probably not the right fit, and we definitely don't want to pay for that traffic. So that's just a useful way to also understand, are the keywords that you're bidding on inviting traffic that you don't necessarily love? And that's not necessarily something that you get out of the common negative list. Now, I mentioned also the rule engine, which we will get to, but I also want to take a stop by the budget portfolio piece. Now, one of the reasons why budgets tend to have a lot of creativity and there's a lot of work there is simply because we have, at the end of the day, a lot of variables that go into our spend, and the 30.4 average that your daily budget will do isn't always exactly what you need your campaigns to work towards. Sometimes you need that budget to be a little bit more targeted during certain points. Sometimes you need it to be a little bit more giving to other campaigns or other parts of your business. So this is where a beautiful budget group can come into play. So when we click here to create that new budget group, and we create that budget group up in that top left-hand corner, and we can call it a new budget group. And our new budget group, our monthly target is going to be, say for example, $10,000. And we want or be notified when we are at, say, 75% of the budget. And pause and notify when aggregate spend of campaigns approaches the target budget. This is up to you. If you know that you cannot exceed a certain spend, you may want to do that. I personally would suggest lowering the budget so that you are not causing a potential learning period issue. You also may want to identify other team members, and this also can actually be sometimes helpful depending on how you structure your accounts to notify the client and letting the client know, hey, listen, we're approaching budget, but we're doing really great. Do you want to let the budget ride, or do you need us to take steps to stop it? This is particularly useful at the 50 to 75% point, because at the end of the day, if you hit 100% and you ask, you're essentially asking for forgiveness instead of permission. And when it comes to budgets, we typically want to ask for permission. So we're going to want to include our budget names here. You can do all budgets, but if you decide that you wanted to do something else, you also can do the particular budgets. Now the final step, as I mentioned, is going to be going to our rule engine. So I'm heading back to the dashboard, and we're going under our optimizations, and we're going to rule engine, and we're going to go to view and create strategies. Now you'll notice that there are a number of strategies that were already listed under rule engine. That's because we get to see every single strategy that's been created, and we're going to click add strategy. And there are two options here. There are the pre-builts, which are very similar to solutions in that we basically hand feed you exactly what you may want there. The other thing that you can do, though, is actually create your own strategy. Now, this can seem very time intensive and very cumbersome. For the purposes of this video, I do want to show you what the create a strategy screen looks like, but we're actually going to modify an existing pre-built strategy. Now, we are constantly building new pre-builts, and if you have a great idea for one and you want to share that and kind of get that nod within Optmyzr, definitely let us know. We are always looking to prop up and amplify the brilliance of our customers, the brilliance of our friends. So let's go ahead to create a strategy. Now, under solutions, we were pretty limited in terms of, and I'll just remind folks what we could do. So once we go into solutions, we have that all account summary, ad performance, account anomaly detector, link checker, flexible budgets, and common negative list. So for rule engine, we can do quite a bit. And these are all if this, then that statements. So say you need to modify a campaign, change its labels, adjust your budgets, adjust your CPAs, make adjustments to your ad groups. This is particularly helpful on the bidding side if you need to pace out or set bid caps for smart bidding. If you need to adjust any keywords or product groups or listing groups. If you want to take a look at search terms and modify any of those search terms, or kind of get a system going where you can segment out really valuable ideas. If you need to adjust any of your targeting, if you need to exclude any placements, if you need to make any adjustments for bids, if you're still leveraging manual bidding because maybe you have a smaller threshold or something like that. If you have your PMAX campaigns, we also have a portfolio bidding strategy, and then also checking for change history, any anomalies there. And then finally, checking for first-party data and connecting your data sources so that you can have your offline conversions, and then eventually also audiences. There's a number of things that you can do within Rule Engine. Part of the reason why Rule Engine is both the best and the worst is that you can do everything. So much like GA4, where you can do everything, but you also have to build everything, starting from scratch within Rule Engine can be a very intimidating process. So that's why we're going to actually dive straight into some of the pre-builds. And we're going to go to the pre-build strategies. Now you will notice that we have 70 pre-builds, managing where your ads can show, monitoring and alerts, optimizing positions, optimizing bid adjustments, optimizing shopping campaigns, optimizing campaigns for manual bidding versus smart bidding, and reducing cost. Now, one thing that's worth noting for the manual bidding, you can adjust any of these to be focused on smart bidding again if you like the idea of the manual bid. So say, for example, if you want to optimize bids to target ROAS and you can choose to enable them to focus on the particular ROAS, you can do that. Also, say, for example, you want to adjust for the first page bid estimates. This is actually a good report to see how many of your keywords are struggling to hit the first page and top of page. But we're actually going to go ahead and look at the reduced cost suggestions. And you can see here we highlighted Kirk Williams, so if you do want to join us and be part of the Optmyzr suite, you can. Note that whether you're looking at Optmyzr Core or Optmyzr Social, you are able to make adjustments based off of the if, this, then, that, to include in reports or to take action. Wishing you a beautiful day and month on the path to profit and victory. Cheers, guys. Bye.